I give you what would that be? How would that be? There's something called
All right. So, having seen how thyroid hormones are being synthesized inside of the thyroid gland, now it's very important for us to understand what regulates this mode of synthesis. All right? Now, we said that thyroid hormone is released by the follicular cells, right? Before it's being synthesized, who can recapitulate for me what happens? Step after step. First, trapping iodine. Two, no, before the oxidation it has to go to the colloid, right? Then, organification of thyroglobulin, then phagocytosis, then proteases, chop them, T3, T4, right? Any checkpoint of these steps that could be any articulation that could be regulated somehow by a drug will affect the thyroid hormone synthesis, right? Now, the major player that will activate this whole phenomena is a hormone that will come from the pituitary gland. The hormone is called TSH, for thyroid stimulating hormone. What does TSH do? TSH usually activates all kind of these mechanisms that we just listed. First of all, it will increase the shopping of the thyroglobulin. So you have more T3 and T4 now available to be released. It will increase the iodide trapping. It will increase the organification. It will increase the oxidation. All these steps that we spoke about them, TSH will increase them in a way or another. Now this pituitary gland detects the levels of T3 and T4 in the circulation. Either it will say, okay, increase the TSH or decrease the TSH. Above, on top of the pituitary gland, you have the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus will actually regulate the TSH at the pituitary gland by TRH, thyrotropin released hormone. And what is thyrotropin? Thyrotropin is the TSH that it is actually released from the pituitary gland. Let's see those things. So first of all, for the TSH will bind to the receptor of TSH. It's just at the apical membrane of the follicular cells in the thyroid gland, right? Then this TSH, apparently the TSH receptor is a G protein coupled receptor. What does it mean, G protein coupled receptor? Will activate a G protein and then a cascade of events, right? The cascade of events will activate cyclic AMP and PKC and IP3. And inside of the cell, once these kinases are activated, they start activating other proteins, other receptors, other mechanisms, and then you will have increased activity of all the points that I just mentioned to you. In particular, the cleavage of thyroglobulin. If you have a cleavage of thyroglobulin, means T3 and T4 will be released, right? If you don't have cleavage of thyroglobulin, no matter how much you increase the trapping, the oxidation, the organification, the reabsorption, T3 and T4 will not be released. Okay? Now, the thyrotropin releasing hormone, it will actually be secreted at the hypothalamus. The receptor for it is at the pituitary gland. Again, the binding to the hormone, to the receptor, will activate a cascade inside of the cell. The second messenger is believed to be PLC, and you know, calcium is a wide portfolio of messengers that can be activated by this second messenger called calcium. So you will actually release now TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, and TSH goes to the circulation and will bind to the TSH receptor on the thyroid hormone gland receptor. Deal? Yeah? Sure? Akid? Fine? You have a question? Keep it. This is a loop. He didn't have a question. This is why I said keep it. This is a loop. Okay? You have the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus will affect the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland secretes TSH. TSH will bind to the receptor, and then it's a positive feedback loop. One activates the other, one activates the other, one activates the other. And when you have it's a negative feedback loop. Once you have so much T3 and T4, this is being sensed by the pituitary gland, and because we have increased metabolism, it has been shown that apparently the high temperature can affect the hypothalamus. So if you have cold temperatures, usually the hypothalamus is activated more, so it can stimulate the pituitary gland and the thyroid hormone secretion, because we said thyroid hormone will increase the metabolism. So we'll have more production of energy, and you will have more heat in the body. Now, if you have increased temperature, the hypothalamus seems to be not ordering the pituitary gland to secrete the TSH, and TSH then it will not go and affect the thyroid gland. Now, pharmacologically, we can still modulate those steps of iodine trapping, the organification, the oxidation, and the chopping of thyroglobulins. So there are some drugs. Please, what I want from you, these drugs are listed in the small gray highlight. Okay? For me, if you memorize the drug or not, I don't really care. Those drugs are just for your physiology. When you get to the pharmacology, when you get to the real clinic, they may have a new drug, whatever it is. All what I want you to know is that either you can affect the iodide trapping, or you can affect the iodination of the thyroid. That's all what I want you to know. And this last one, as Abdulillah said, if you have if you have a hyperthyroidism, actually, what they do, they tend to bombard your thyroid gland with lots of iodide. But the iodide should be radioactive. Why radioactive? It will go and it will kill the cell. So if you have high concentration of iodide, you will not have more actually secretion of the T3 and T4. You will affect this and you will stop it. So the higher concentration of iodide has two functions: stop the release, and number two, because it is radioactive, it will kill the thyroid cells, the thyroid gland cells or the follicular cells. Why do we need to kill them? Do you know? To reduce the size. Usually, if you have increased size of the gland, you cannot just operate and remove it surgically. You need to reduce it to a certain size, then you can operate. And to reduce it to a certain size, the only way to do it is by incorporating radioactive iodine. So this is a scheme that I showed to you. I listed the drugs for you. What drug will affect what? This, please memorize it. You know this, right? As I mentioned to you during the first year. This is a very important slide. Boil it, drink it. It's not tasty. A little bit of sugar will smoothen it a little bit, okay? It's very important to know, you're going to be medical doctors, which point of the secretion of the thyroid hormone you can affect. Now, some diseases about the thyroid gland. Sometimes you have an autoimmune disease. Do you still remember the myasthenia gravis?
Yes.
Excellent. What is myasthenia gravis? It's an autoimmune disease that will block a channel, right? Excellent. Same case here. You will have an autoimmune disease in the body. You will develop IgGs or antibodies for the TSH receptor. Where is the TSH receptor again? Apical side of the follicular cells, right? Problem here that this receptor, this antibody will not block the receptor. It will keep it active for longer and longer and longer time. The more this receptor is active, we've seen the cascade, cyclic AMP, phospholipase C, IP3, DAG. You will have more and more and more production of what? Thyroglobulin. If you have more and more production of thyroglobulin, supposedly you will have more absorption of the iodine. If you have more production of thyroglobulin, but you have a defect on the absorption of the iodine, it means the cell will be storing and storing and storing lots of thyroglobulin. Thyroglobulin are being dispersed in the colloid, huge amounts, nothing is happening, no shopping, no organification, no shopping, no release of T3 and T4. The gland actually expands in volume, in mass, and we call this goiter. So when you have increased mass of the thyroid hormone, is because you have lots of storage inside of the hormone of thyroglobulin that are not processed properly to give you the final component, which is either T3 and T4. This is different though from the cancer. Sometimes you have cancer in the thyroid gland, and this cancer, definitely it's a tumor, it will increase the size of the thyroid gland. There is something about the thyroid gland. Sometimes the adenoma will appear only in certain part of the gland. So what will happen to the gland? If it appears in certain area of the glands, those area definitely the cells will proliferate more, right? You'll have more number of cells. You have, in theory, more secretion of T3 and T4, right? What happens, more secretion of T3 and T4, it means the pituitary gland will notice that, right? Then they will decrease the TSH, right? If you decrease the TSH, the other part of the thyroid gland, which are the healthy part, will receive TSH and will stop producing what? T3 and T4. So you will have increase in size in the tumor, in the adenoma part of the cell, of the gland, and you will have shrinkage, decrease in the normal one. So you won't have that goiter anymore. You will have a nodular aspect of the gland. Some parts are big, sometimes shrink. Some parts shrink. The nodular one are the ones that they have the adenoma in them. These are the most commonly known, accepted symptoms or signs of a patient that's diagnosed with hyperthyroidism. High state of excitability, very active, cannot sit, has to move, has to do something, emotion. Why is that? As we mentioned, thyroid hormone will increase the excitability at the synapse, right? and will increase the excitation of the muscle, right?